Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking something absolutely wild. We're looking at a €1 billion mega project right in the heart of Belgrade, Serbia, that is literally redefining the limits of sports architecture. We are talking about the world's very first floating garden stadium. So imagine this. What actually happens when you replace those traditional, heavy, concrete stadium walls with living, breathing, floating forests? I mean, for decades, sports arenas have just been these massive blocks of brutalist concrete or, sleek but kind of sterile glass facades. But picture walking up to a stadium where the outside isn't a wall at all. Instead, it's a towering, multi-level vertical forest. It's a total game changer. It fundamentally reimagines how we experience massive public infrastructure, and for the 52,000 fans it's going to hold, it's way more than just a cosmetic upgrade.
And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer mechanical ingenuity going on here. To actually pull this off, engineers are relying on what's been described as a complex network of steel cables and a suspension engineering considered unique in the world. No exaggeration, unique in the entire world. They aren't just, slapping some potted plants onto a concrete balcony. The structural integrity of this whole garden system relies on this immensely complicated web of steel tension cables. It's a completely unique way to distribute weight, specifically designed to hold massive amounts of living, organic stuff suspended right in midair.
Let's break down the difference here. Think about a conventional stadium, like pretty much any major arena you've ever been to. You've got your thick concrete, your glass facades, and the massive weight of those stands is supported from underneath by heavy traditional pillars, right? Well, this garden stadium model completely ditches those traditional pillars on the outside. Instead, it uses 4 giant rings of vertical gardens, packed with shrubs and trees, planted on terraces that are supported entirely by those suspension cables we were just talking about. From the outside, it creates this incredible visual illusion. It literally looks like these 4 massive rings of nature are just effortlessly floating around the arena.
But, as you might guess, making something look effortless requires an absolute mountain of behind-the-scenes engineering. We're talking about a massive structure covering 76,000 square meters. And because this is this wild hybrid of civil engineering and landscaping, the math required is off the charts. The engineers aren't just figuring out the static weight of steel and concrete like usual. No, they have to dynamically calculate the weight of tons of soil, the totally unpredictable weight of rainwater soaking into that soil, and here's the craziest part, the future weight of the plants and trees as they physically grow and get heavier over the years. You're engineering a building that is literally alive and constantly changing weight.
Now what's really interesting about this slide is how architectural experts are comparing the base shape of this Serbian project to the famous Mané Garrincha Stadium over in Brasilia, Brazil. If you look closely, they definitely share that same striking circular metallic framework. But the absolutely crucial distinction here is that Serbia's national stadium takes that base structural concept and just pushes it into an entirely new frontier. It goes way beyond the Brazilian reference by adding this unprecedented vegetal and landscaping dimension. It's basically taking a known architectural shape and transforming it into a living, breathing ecosystem.
To hold all of that together, well, that requires a jaw-dropping amount of strength, specifically 12.6 thousand tons of steel. That is a massive, massive volume of metal just for the supporting beams, the suspension cables for those terraces, and the whole framework for the roof and stands. And hey, this isn't just theoretical anymore. The very first lifting of this colossal steel structure actually just recently finished up. So we've officially hit the moment where this garden stadium is finally starting to take visible shape in the real world.
But, any project of this sheer magnitude comes with a heavy dose of reality. Which brings us to a really important question. How exactly did an idea that was originally estimated at €250 million completely balloon into a €1 billion reality? It's so easy to get swept up in the gorgeous architectural renderings of these floating gardens, right? But to truly understand this explainer, we have to look at the financial and logistical hurdles that defined its history. Trust me, it has been a very long, very bumpy road to get here.
So let's trace that journey. This definitely wasn't an overnight decision. The debates actually kicked off way back in 2013. Back then, they were throwing around that €250 million estimate, and honestly, they weren't even sure if they wanted to build a brand new stadium or just renovate some existing club facilities. 5 years of back and forth indecision passed before they finally locked down the suburb of Srčan as the location in 2018. Then the project stalled out again, with the COVID-19 pandemic obviously throwing a massive wrench in the schedule. It actually wasn't until May 1st, 2024, Labor Day, that the groundbreaking ceremony finally happened.
By then, the massive design complexities of creating a world-first garden stadium, mixed with global construction inflation, well, that drove the cost right up to that €1 billion mark. Now they're targeting completion by the end of 2026.
Executing a project with this level of literally unprecedented complexity requires some massive logistical firepower, and that firepower is being provided by two global giants, China State Construction Engineering Corporation, or CSCE, and Power China. CSCE is tackling the incredibly complex design, manufacturing, and installation of that massive 12.6 thousand ton steel structure, while Power China is stepping in as the main contractor. But, their involvement represents more than just a construction gig. It's actually a highly visible chapter in Beijing's global engineering export strategy. It's showcasing their state-owned company's ability to execute world-first megaprojects right on the international stage.
And that leads us right into the fascinating geopolitical layers funding this whole endeavor. See, Serbia, which is not part of the European Union, had a choice in how to fund this €1 billion project. On one hand, European funds are an option in the region. But, as the source notes, those often come attached with political requirements that the government in Belgrade just doesn't always accept. So instead, the Serbian government opted to finance the project through alternative infrastructure investments and partnerships with China. Impartially speaking, this choice really highlights the growing economic influence, through loans and commercial partnerships, that China currently exercises in the Balkans.
So the crucial point is, why does Serbia need this stadium so badly that they're willing to invest €1 billion? Well, right now, Serbia literally does not have a single stadium that simultaneously meets the rigorous standards of both the FIFA World Cup and UEFA Continental competitions. This new 52,000-seat arena, it completely transforms their athletic infrastructure. It instantly gives them the capacity to host major Euro and World Cup group stage and quarter-final matches. Plus, it provides a venue that meets all those strict UEFA requirements for the advanced stages of the Champions League. That is a massive, massive upgrade for local rival clubs like Red Star and Partizan. And ultimately, it finally gives the Serbian national football team a state-of-the-art permanent home.
Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. You've seen the groundbreaking engineering, you've heard the complex timeline, and we've talked about that staggering €1 billion, or roughly 6 billion Brazilian reais, price tag. So I've got to turn the question over to you. Would you want a stadium like this in your country? I mean, is spending billions on a marvel of floating vertical gardens a brilliant investment in the future of green urban infrastructure and sports, or is it just a beautifully complex excess? It is a fascinating debate for sure, and it's one that's only going to grow louder as those steel cables finally lift those gardens into the Belgrade sky in 2026.